you know, after Yahweh, what he kept saying, that everything was to reproduce after its kind. All right? Now, the flip side of that coin is that what happened? Did everything and everybody in all of creation obey that Torah mandate? No. So this is why we have the amazing story that we have. Okay? And why it has been such a process for Yahweh to get back to making a new heaven and a new earth where everything is back to its kind. And we'll get back to that. But if you start with day 5, if you start with Genesis 1:20, on the 5th day Yahweh began to make. And the first thing he made was fish. This is the Strong's number 1710. It's the root. Let me see if I give you some of this. I'm just gonna touch on these probably on this video because this is introduction, and then I'm gonna come back and we're gonna start to take these on one by one, and you're gonna be amazed. It's gonna explain everything. So fish is the word dag, D-A-G. It is one. Now there's a couple, and one thing I understand in Hebrew, there's usually a grouping of words. There's usually words. So in other words, Hebrew is done so there's always like a 2-letter root and a 3-letter. And actually, again, it's so 2-letter roots are like, oh, I don't even want to get into that gates. There's so much between between 2 letters and 3 letters and what they're containing. They're bits. They're tied together as little bits of code. So the root word of dag is 109, 110, and 1709, 1710, and 1712. My point is, you start with the root, the 2 or 3 letter root, and a lot of times a couple letters are getting added to it because it's kind of expanding its understanding, but they all relate to each other, and usually it's just vowel points that make it different, or an extra letter that is kind of expanding on its core understanding. So we have fish is the first thing. I'm going to just go through these really quick. Then you have number 2 is birds. All right, birds is 5775. It's the root word. It's OWP. Oomph. It is, and it refers to flying creatures. Now, again, this is where we're doing this. Birds, we know the easiest one, they're representing angels, certain orders of living souls, because all of these things ultimately are categorized in this as living souls. This is so important to understand. All right, and we're not talking at this point of the literal animals out there in creation. That's just a whole nother side of the coin. These words are used by our prophets to tell us about the other species of living souls, like the angels that he created, all these other things. Okay, now serpents. Oh my gosh, this one, day 5 still. 3 things made, 3 living souls made on day 5. Fish, birds, and serpents. Now serpents, this one, see, because today people are beginning to really unpack dragons, dragon lord, serpents, what's going on? The Nakash, all right, he is in this category. This is a root word for tan, T-A-N. So anything that has in its word, you know, tan, you know you're going back to a root, a serpent, all right, a dragon. They're translated like something jackal. I mean, the thing is but we have to stick with just 1 or 2 core concept words to describe. These are the serpents, the dragons, okay? Now, and they're we're going to spend a lot of time on serpents because that's a huge piece of the story. Okay, the 4th one is the cattle. Now we're on day 6. I should have put that. So like this. Hold on, let's keep it as, this is day 5. All right, and then this is going to be on day 6. Okay, and these are all in the Hebrew, and we'll take it, we'll get a program out and do it in the Hebrew. These are all living souls. Now on day 5, on day 6, Yah created says more living souls. I mean, he wasn't even done. And let me tell you one more time, these, when it says like fish, birds. These are just the hugest, largest classifications. Just like we know there are so many kinds of fish in the ocean, there are so many kinds of living souls that are under this category called fish. All right, this species. This is another, thing to understand. But so we have the first thing, cattle. This is number 929 in your Strong's. This is the behemoth. All right, it's one of the most confusing words, if you try to do this, is the word beast. When they use the word beast to translate, it's sometimes cattle are beasts, sometimes Adamites are beasts, sometimes serpents are beasts. It's very confusing. But because the trans, I don't think, understood. They didn't have this whole classification system, so they didn't understand. So, but for all intents and purposes, the word cattle, which many times is translated beast, is not really biblically what the word beast is being used as. It's the word behemoth, and it's usually translated oxen, livestock, beasts. Okay. Now, this one, number 5, then he makes what are called these creeping things. Okay? And creeping things, it's the words 74330 and 1. Ramez or Ramez. They are creeping things. All right? So, just think, we got this whole level. It includes reptiles and insecticides. It's this whole species of things that live really very on the surface of the earth and on the surface of the water and maybe just a little bit below. So this is, I'm going to have to go to one last point before I do this. Creeping things. And then we have number 6, the crowning, suppose from our point of view, because technically we would be Adamites. Adam, 120. All right, so this is important. What is separate? What is different between an Adamite and a behemoth? 929. This is, we have to understand this and keep it straight. Now, let me go through this again one more time, giving you how. All right, before I do that, I have one more point. Now, this is why, these things need to be grasped also. Enlarge the theological concepts. I have been through this. Again, these are living souls, living species, living beings, living entities, living creatures. These are all ways in which, but I tend to like living souls the best. I'm going to use Nephesh soul life. These are souls that have hay in them. They have life in them. All right. Now, one thing to understand is, like I said, you got five worlds, you got 5 levels of soul life. This is, like I said, the most elemental, and all these things were given the Windows program. When their computer started up, that's what always starts them up, is this Windows 10 or whatever it's called program. Okay, so, but the other way you have to look at this is these beings inhabit different portions, different world, and one way that the worlds are always talking about, in the ancients especially, is, and I said this, is earth, air, wind, and fire. These are different, and it equates with today modern science would use the words, and they know what they're doing. They're really saying the same thing with different words. A solid state, liquid state, a gaseous state, or air, or plasma, which is fire. All right, that's why, when you get into this, Joe said that why there are fiery serpents. Because these serpents, this class of living being, resides in a domain, is made to live in this world, this plasma world. Now, we're not talking literally about fire or water, these things that we see here. These, again, are the ways and the best way we have to classify different dimensions where living beings live. So when there are living souls, every species that live in the sea, I'm not saying that the same species that we're talking about here in the deep soul level literally live in our oceans per se. They live in a domain, a world, all right, that is likened to the sea. Now, let me go back and say this again and try to plug in what these things are representing, all right? So fish made on the first day. This is some really deep stuff. Okay, so the fish live in the sea, and the sea is equated with waters. Remember, now we're in the lower waters, and with liquid, but it's not again. All right, let me see that. There is a place our text will tell us called the underworld. Okay, under. The other thing, you have to understand geography. You have to understand how specific all these Hebrew words relate to each other. So there are, when you're talking about geography, so whether something is living on the land, whether it's living in the sea, or whether it's living in the air, okay, the words are very specific, and I have teachings on this in Bentham, but it's important to understand, you know, the word en, which is the word in, which is the word in is the word en, which is things live in heavens, but things live upon, epi, another word, upon the earth. This is all telling you geographically what's going on. There are things that live under the earth, so they're saying below, all right? This is the word hypokato, under. There are beings that live epi, on the sea, and there are beings that live again en, in the sea. All right, so each of these has a geographic location within these four different worlds, so to speak, okay? This is what's going on. So we know in the underworld, and this is where I just tell you something, this is why getting, you know, according to the sages, or to the prophets, if you read these words, there are 7 heavens. Well, actually, well, I mean, there's 10 heavens, there's 7 for all intents and purposes of what we're dealing with, okay? Underworld, there's 7 levels of the, and if you look at the 7 levels of the underworld, we know there's shale and tartar, you know, all these different, and I'll get out the Hebrew names of them all. And there's 7 heavens, and each one has a firmament. All right, so we can't, the depth of some of this stuff. All right, so the fish represent demons. These represent, or daemons. And these are the created beings that live in the sea, in the underworld, all right? And there is an underworld, all right? That begins to explain a lot of mythology and a lot of what. Now, let me say one more point. There is something that I have to qualify with. Remember, keeping all this on, Yahweh made the whole creation, but 1/3 of it rebelled against him. This is the story, you know, with the fallen angels, and Hasatan led an army of hosts. These are also called the hosts of Elohim. This is the, you know, he is the Lord. He is Adonai Sabaoth, the Lord of the armies. Adonai of the armies. This is what it's talking about. These are in a lot of ways referred to in our text as his armies, his servants. It's another way it's all looked at. So these demons in the underworld are not necessarily all bad. This is something we have to understand. There are good demons, there's bad demons. This is the whole point of a clean and unclean. Even within these species and domains, just like we have today in the Adamite, you know, we're told the wheat and the tares grow together. It's the same in every domain. So you got good guys and bad guys, so to speak, all right? And this is another thing. The rabbis have an insane, the sages, way they very specifically use the words to tell you, are they talking about good fish, quote unquote, good demons, or bad demons? Okay, so this is one thing that we do have to grow up. I know it's very it's very offensive to an evangelical mind to think that the word demons, there are definitely bad demons, but they are demons that are just servants of Elohim, and they just do what he says, and a lot of them are used. This is what, on the left side, these are chastening angels. All right, so there's a whole bunch that goes on in this category, but I just want to tell you. So if you want to take fish, what we're really telling you here is, and just to give you a couple of keys here, I said it comes from the root words of dag. Well, if you look at the word in 1712, the proper noun is Dagon, which is a god of the Philistines and of the Phoenicians, and he is the fish god. And it's telling you, he comes from the underworld. He is the god of the underworld. Sometimes these people aren't confused. They know what they're saying, all right? So when you see the king, you know, Poseidon, he's got his stuff. He is literally a king. He is a ruler, all right? It gets really deep into stuff, but of this underworld, this place in the sea where the fish are, and he's got plenty and plenty of other demons under him, okay? So let's leave that one. There's a lot more to unpack there. Let's go into number 2. Then Yahweh made birds. All right, and it tells you very clearly. He made birds that fly in the shamayans, the heavens. Okay, that's like I said, there's more than one. It's very stratified. In different species of angels, even though, or different species of birds, live in the different shamayans, heavens. I mean, think of it today. You know, you got an eagle who lives way up high, you know, and then you got little kind of ground birds, the little chickadees. They don't fly too high. They stay very close to the ground. This is, again, nature does always parallel, or let me put it this way. The brilliancy of the prophets and sages is they classify this information in absolutely real science, okay? So they completely complement each other. There's nothing contradictory. So even in the classification of angels who are birds, and you know, we probably feel the closest to the angels, all right? Because angels in a lot of ways, and I've been through our messengers, our meleks, they work very closely with Elohim, with his Adamites, okay? They have more of a, even though there are fallen angels, all right, there are definitely, you know, you look, when you got Michael and Gabriel, these are very powerful angels in this classification of a living being, all right? Now, let's go into, and there's clean, and again, clean and unclean. This is what it's telling us. Now, this one is going to take a lot, the serpents, the dragons, oh my gosh. All right, because ultimately, this is the problem race on the planet. This is ultimately, when this problem race is dealt with, we will go back to a peaceable kingdom. All right, because it is this one, Hasatan is a serpent. He is a dragon. Okay, but there are, and this is where it is so encrypted, and there's a lot, now that people are reading greater text, we're getting a bigger picture of how this has been coded. There are 2, if you look at this in Genesis 1, 20 and 21, when he talks about he made 2 great sea creatures. All right, now, again, you want to be in kindergarten and you want to think that the sea creatures are giant whales or something, fine, teach your kindergartens that. It's, all right? In the ocean, Yah did make very large fish, and there's very tiny fish. Again, the whole principle of this thing. But ultimately, we are talking about 2, the Leviathan and the Behemoth, okay? 2 tan, root word, 2 serpents, dragons, sea monsters, whatever you want to call it. This is huge. And just to give you a clue how this is in Isaiah 27:1, he talks about, in that day, which is soon to come, praise Yahweh, Yahweh will punish the Leviathan. And if you look at it, Leviathan, T-A-N, is on the end of that word, okay? That Nakash, the word is actually, again, you got to let 5175, which is the Nakash, which is the serpent, that race, which is the same word that was the Nakash that was in the garden with Eve, okay? Tell you, your problem. Okay, and it says, in that day Yahweh will punish Leviathan, that serpent, and he will slay that quote-unquote reptile, 8579, which is, again, a root word off of tan. Remember, so you have 8579, 8577, 8565, all words that have the word tan, the root in it, and we're talking about this. And it turns out that there is a marine tan dragon, and there is a land dragon. This is the behemoth and the Leviathan. Now, that's huge, and we're going to unpack that, all right? That's what we're talking about. Okay, back to now to day 6, and this is, oh my gosh. Okay, on day 6, we're making, the first thing I was making is called, these living souls is the behemoth. These cattle, oxen, livestock, sometimes translated beasts, but I just don't think that that's really the correct way to do it because it gets too confusing with the word che, which is also translated beast, but that's going to be another whole episode, how to straighten all that out. But this, if you really want to know, this is the category that really we're getting now into prehistoric man, because now these things are made, these live in the sea, these are in the Shamayans, the serpents are also in the sea, okay? So we're in different domains. But when you get down here to the cattle, the cream, we are on the earth. Now we're on a level here. We're in this, and even like I said, there's many levels of earth. This is kind of, and, okay, so but the cattle, this is your first prehistoric or pre-Adamic man. Technically, I'm going to just tell you, cut to the chase. This is basically in our text, what the text is calling the Gentiles. All right, this is why it says, it's always saying, if you look at it, man and beast, man and beast, man and beast. All right, and a lot of our, I mean, we'll just go to Jonah 3:8. All right, just to, real quick, these are some of the verses we're really going to unpack. If you can even write that down if you want to get a head start and start looking them up, especially get out of Concord or, you know, a Hebrew, take you right into the Hebrew. But for all intents and purposes, the Gentiles, the behemoths, this classification is a very pre-Adamic man, all right? And appears on day 6. And again, this whole thing, when we haven't even touched on the whole concept of time, what kind of timeline do you put this stuff all on, okay? I don't ascribe it to the literal 24 hours, all right? This is what I mean. If you can understand how much is coded into these words, okay, we're not talking about literal 24 hours for any of this type of stuff going on, okay? We're talking about ages, because another polysemous level of meaning of the word, like living and che, it's really translated age. These things, oh, there's just too much. I don't want, okay, let's go back to, we're talking about cattle, okay? But if you looked at Jonah 3:8, and it's in Nineveh, where Jonah is told to go and tell the Ninevites they need to repent because they're just getting way, their lifestyle is so anti-Torah, you know, Yahweh's getting fed up with it, and he's going to come and judge them because they're too bloodthirsty, they're killing, murdering, extorting, they're just doing everything, making their culture very dark and demonic, and, you know, but the point is, they do repent, and it always is talking about how man and beast repented together. And man and beast both put on sackcloth before Yahweh and repented. Now, come on, let's critically think. That verse is what is called a huge remez verse. It's hinting. Since when do you ever, even in the Bible, see them putting sackcloth on their animals, their real livestock? I mean, that's never spoken of. That's not even, we're talking about the Adamite man, that lived in the sea, plus the Gentiles, all right? They all repented together in sackcloth and ashes, and Yahweh received their repentance and you know, delayed their judgment, all right? That's right. So it's there. It's very clearly there when you begin to have your eyes open, all right? And you can see these things. So Gentile, this again is a huge category. We're going to spend a lot of time on that. Trying to move quick. The creeping things. Oh my gosh. All right. Creeping things live. Okay. The words are on the sea. They're called skimmers. They're called swarmers. There's a lot of, so if you look at the insect, there's a lot of, they hide in the caves and in the dens and in the rocks and in tunnels. You know, they live just on the surface, and they live a little bit below the surface. Now, we know now, studying out ancient cultures, they have talk about these kind of peoples, these kind of living entities, and they have names. These are where the fairies, the gnomes, the elves, the tree people, even if you're in the mermaids, there are so many categories that the elementals, okay, I did a whole series in metals on the elementals. This is a whole category, the little people, okay? This is real, people, all right? So we have to stop pretending, but again, it says in one sense, it says that the fear of Adam was put into all of these animals at one point. Otherwise, oh my gosh. All right, so this is real. This is what the creeping things are, okay? We're talking about these classifications of living entities. The last one is Adam. And this is where the whole thing is. And we're going to get back to, it's okay. All right, Adam is Strong's 120. You just got to know that. And I believe Strong's 76 is the proper noun for Adam. Remember? And Paul talks about, every time the first Adam and the second Adam, all these things. Adam is a classification, the last creation, the last living soul that was made. But in this time, Yahweh did something different, and he gave this Adam, this species, another program. Not only did they have Nefesh, soul life, and they had Ruach, and I'll discuss how Ruach relates into this, but this now had Neshama. Neshama is like the highest, is a program, so to speak, that would make this Adam the highest level, highest functioning, highest evolved, whatever of all the species, and was put in charge, was put over all these other species. He's the king, okay? Now, did it stay like that forever? No. We have the story. This certain serpent and other, came and warred against this Adamite. We have a whole storyline in our Bible about all this, okay? But suffice it to say, for now, who would have thought, all right? This is going to, my goal in all this, number one, I have to say, I want to give Yahweh total glory and credit, all right? The Bible is not some little book for kindergartners and that we can allow people to denigate us and make fun of it. It is the deepest, most profound, highly encoded and encrypted text on the planet. No sacred writing even comes close, okay? But we have to, like I said, it's our job now as the elect to get up to speed, to begin to be able to ingest and to begin to be able to get the mind of how the highest mind of Elohim, of wisdom and understanding now of what's going on, all right? Because we are coming the end of the 6th day, okay, into now the 7th day, which is a day of rest, where things will be righted, and we will, the earth will be totally repopulated, everything will be back in its doom, and the fun thing is we'll be able to, it's so interesting. We don't, I don't want to get ahead of myself. You know how I use black magic to interface or, with different dimensional things. The part about the millennium is everybody will be righteous again. Everybody will be in proper order, properly submitted to Yahweh and then to his priests. And it'll be wonderful. And we'll really enjoy each other. Enjoy the diversity and the creativity of our Father. So, if you're still with me and can hang on, let's go into this whole series of unlocking the keys on animal apocalypses. Shalom and blessings in Yahweh's name.